About 1 in every 100 Americans has a seizure disorder, also called epilepsy. Medicines control most seizures, but sometimes they still happen.
I've had them just here on the street alone, or maybe in some of the shopping centers.
I had a seizure on the road.
Whenever I was taking my exam, I would have a seizure right there in the auditorium.
I had a seizure on the metro train.
When someone has a seizure, knowing what to do makes a big difference. But how many of us do know what to do?
I might panic.
I would not know what to do if I saw someone having a seizure.
Turn her to her side and just kind of be there for her.
Well, I know you don't stick a spoon under their tongue.
Quite frankly, I'm really not sure. I wish I knew better.
When Lori Stoltman was 12, she had a seizure at a swimming pool.
Somebody had taken a dirty plastic toy and stuck it in my mouth. And you're not supposed to stick anything in the mouth because it can hurt the teeth or hurt the jaw. And what it did, I guess it got in the way of my tongue and my mouth, and I ended up chewing up my tongue really badly.
One of the myths surrounding epileptic seizures is the fact that the person can injure themselves or that they might swallow their tongue during a seizure. It's impossible for a person to swallow their tongue, and for this reason and others, we should not be trying to put things in people's mouths when they have seizures.
I think the other concern that people have in coming in contact with people with seizures is that this might be something that's catching and that they could get seizures if they remain in contact. Again, this is not a contagious disorder.
Seizures vary in type, but this is the kind most of us have seen. It's called a generalized tonic-clonic seizure, or grand mal. It's caused by a disturbance in the brain's normal electrical activity.
Once a seizure is started, you can't stop the seizure, so the best thing to do is to make the person as injury-free as possible and to make the experience of the person having a seizure as tolerable as possible.
For a week each summer, Pat Dean volunteers at a camp where children as young as 8 learn what to do if another camper has a seizure. First aid for seizures is simple. Protect from injury, especially to the head. Remove glasses or other potentially harmful objects. Turn on one side to prevent choking. Check for a medical ID. Don't put anything in the mouth. And don't hold down, because restraint could cause bone or muscle injury.
The likelihood that someone can die during a seizure is very small. And although the person may look as if they're going to die, that is that they oftentimes will become somewhat blue. There may be some changes in the breathing pattern. These are all part of the seizure itself, and they are all very temporary parts of the seizure.
Seizures usually end spontaneously after a minute or two, but afterwards the person may be sleepy, agitated, or confused.
I'm aware of what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying, but it's hard for me to respond.
When I first come out of it, I feel real drowsy. I have a real bad headache.
Are you okay, Jonathan? Do you know where you are? Where are you? At camp, that's right.
A seizure can occur at any age, from the very old to the very young. It happened to Denise Dean's 9-month-old baby.
I was just holding him, and he was laying across, and his whole body started just shaking and, convulsed real bad.
And then
when a baby has a seizure and he's not had one before, a medical checkup is always necessary.
And the importance of that is really to determine if the baby has fever, and if the baby has a fever, to make sure that there is not another medical problem.
Seizures caused by fever are not epilepsy, but first aid is the same.
Gently put her on her side, and then if she has any tight clothing, just to unfasten that at the neck and lift up her chin so that her neck is extended so that the saliva that's in her mouth can just gently roll out.
Most seizures in people with epilepsy are not medical emergencies.
I don't want people to call an ambulance or to call the police because my seizures are not severe enough to require that type of medical attention. I will come out of it naturally
on my own in a very short period of time.
But there are some situations in which a seizure could be considered an emergency, such as head trauma, person having their first time seizure, seizures associated with diabetes.
A seizure might be an emergency if it occurs within the context of water. Say, for example, if a person was swimming and had a seizure.
An ambulance should be called for a first-time seizure when someone is injured, pregnant, has diabetes, or when seizures are prolonged or occur one after the other. Kim Zimmer's son, Chad, had a convulsive seizure that went on for more than half an hour before he got to a hospital. Untreated, such seizures can be dangerous.
During a grand mal seizure, it's very important to time the seizure, and if the seizure lasts more than 5 minutes, that's when you should be concerned and be calling an ambulance.
If a child has prolonged seizures or seizures in clusters, the doctor may teach the parents how to administer a special kind of quick-acting medicine to make the seizure stop. The kind of seizure Kevin Best is having doesn't look like the other ones we've seen, but it's actually more common.
Kevin, can you hear
This
me?
is called a complex partial seizure.
Kevin? Can you hear me? Are you okay?
Oh.
Can you hear me?
Oh.
During a complex partial seizure, awareness is lost, even though someone may look awake and even repeat phrases.
Oh, I love you. Please, please.
Okay. Although movements may look deliberate, people are unaware of what they're doing. Some people become agitated. Complex partial seizures can produce all kinds of movements.
These can consist of repetitive movements of hands. It could be lip-smacking movements. They could pick at their clothing.
My eyes would still be open. I could still walk around, I could still talk to people, but I wouldn't understand what I was saying, and I wouldn't understand anything that somebody would say back to me.
Just start rolling my left hand over and staring at it. And I play with my buttons. It's really weird when you've got a t-shirt on that you're picking at your buttons, but that's one of the things I do.
Complex partial seizures may begin abruptly. This man goes into a seizure as he's talking.
I had a whole summer with the job, and I was there.
They may still have their eyes open, they may be standing upright, they may even walk around the room, but they're not interacting appropriately with the people around them at that time.
The best thing that you can do for that particular individual is to protect them, to keep them from wandering off or wandering into traffic or into situations that may be more harmful to them.
If you see someone having a complex partial seizure, be reassuring. Explain to bystanders.
You know your name.
Look for a medical ID. Guide away from hazards. And if the person is agitated, stay back.
When a person's having a complex partial seizure, attempts to restrain that person forcibly may lead to that person's rather non-specifically striking out, much as a frightened animal or a frightened person might try to resist a restraint that they don't understand. So it's possible to mishandle seizures and to cause harm to people who are having them.
You should always stay with someone when they're having a seizure. You should never leave them when they're having a seizure, no matter what kind of seizure it is.
So do you know where you are?
Bank?
Yeah, you're at the bank. I think you just had a seizure.
Yeah.
Is there anyone I can call for you?
If full awareness has not returned after half an hour, call for medical assistance. Remember, for a convulsive seizure, turn on one side to prevent choking. Don't put anything in the person's mouth. And keep track of time. For a complex partial seizure, guide away from hazards, don't restrain, and stay on the scene until full awareness returns.
The most important thing that you could do for someone having a seizure is to stay calm, to be with them and to be reassuring.
And while you're talking to that person, saying very calmly, you're going to be fine, everything's going to be okay, you start talking to yourself. So if you're talking to that person, talking to yourself, you're calming yourself down.
And when it's over, just, you know, act like everything's okay. You know, be reassuring, because it isn't any fun to have a seizure. And when the seizure is over, you need to know that you still have your friends and they accept you.